Great. So I think I know everybody on this, which is nice. Nice to connect with everybody over lunch. I'd love it if this ended up being really a conversation. I'm going to walk through this presentation pretty quickly and leave time for questions, discussion, and all of that after. But the topic for today is finding your crisis rescue team. So I don't know anybody that hasn't been experiencing a lot of crisis feelings over the last couple months. From, my dad, who is 78 years old and doesn't need to worry about work, all the way to my 12-year-old who is trying to enjoy his summer, worrying about whether school's coming back, to all the very many people that I interact with on a day-to-day basis who are worried about their businesses. Everybody is feeling that acute sense of crisis. And so I've done a lot of reading and work around the idea of managing through. And I sort of broke up the topics into two broad categories. So the first, which we're going to talk about today, is around sort of the assessment of opportunity and the way to think about that. And then what we've put off and we're not going to talk about today, because it's going to be next week's topic, is the financial piece, because that is, it's a different analysis, different assessment, and frankly, I just couldn't get it all together to do in one halftime seminar, one halftime session. So for today, we're going to talk a little more about the ideas around it and some strategies. And then if you want to join next Tuesday at the same time, we'll dive into the financial piece. So you all know me. I work for the Small Business Development Center here in Connecticut. We were funded partly by the SBA at the federal level and also by the state. So I am available for one-on-one counseling or follow-up on this conversation if you'd like. What we're going to talk about today is sort of, call it 4 topics. The first is to slow down, take a breath, some basics of crisis management, some tools for finding your right rescue team, and then some community resources to share at the end. And in the slow down, take a breath category, I am a pilot, just in my spare time. I don't do a lot of flying right now, but one of the very first rules that my flight instructor taught me was that when you're feeling lost, slow the plane down, because it doesn't help anybody to get more lost more quickly. And I think that comes back to me a lot when you're feeling uncertain, when you're feeling like there's a lot of uncertainty out there, like we're all surely feeling now. The idea of just dialing it down, get to a calm place, so that you can make better decisions. Nobody makes the best decisions when they're being chased by a tiger, right? You want to spend some time, and I think that there are a lot of great things happening at HAYVN. When I heard Felicia talk about the morning meditation, I was kicking myself, like, obviously I should be there. So those things I think are really important, even though we probably feel like we don't have enough time to be doing them. When I think about, okay, that was not exactly the right slide, but what I want to talk about now is in the vein of staying calm and asking yourself the right questions to get your business through that. What I'm hearing a lot is this first question that's up on the slide is, how can I rebuild my business as fast as possible? When people are feeling stressed, they end up trying to make decisions very quickly. They want to get through this challenging time as quickly as possible. And this is the question that people keep asking. And what's interesting about it is that it assumes that everything that you were doing before was exactly right, and the goal is to get right back to it, while recognizing that the reason that we're in the crisis is because so many things have changed. So I found this article, and the link is below. It's an Entrepreneur Magazine article that is super short and concise and worth reading. And it says, instead of asking, how can I rebuild my business as fast as possible to get back to where I was, consider asking, if I were starting my business today from scratch, what business would I build? Knowing what I know, with the skill set that I have and the experience that I have. And if you allow yourself to take that minute to really sink into the reality of now and what's changed, you may end up in a stronger position than where you started. Now, when I'm thinking that through to the next level of, okay, how do we do that really? Like, what is the analysis that's going to be helpful? The SWOT analysis is like, business school 101, but it couldn't be any more relevant than when you're in a crisis. So just to sort of swing through this pretty quickly, for those of us who went to business school like a million years ago, the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. You just make a basic grid. You can do it on a napkin. And even though it is a very simple analysis and people always do it when they're in the ideation phase of their business, I think it's really important to take that napkin back out at any time you're sitting and thinking about what are the next steps, how do we move forward, or particularly now when we're really assessing what we should do and what steps we should take in the wake of the COVID crisis. So when you think about it, your strengths, your weaknesses, those are both things that you can analyze internally about yourself and your business. And then opportunities and threats is when we look externally. What opportunities can we find in this and what are we really fearful about? And the other part of it, the part of this assessment about where you are today and what you want to do going forward, and again, this sort of segues from the article that said, take a breath, take a moment, figure out where you want to be, is, these are sort of the rules of engagement, is give yourself permission to challenge every assumption that you've made thus far. So every piece of how you got to where you are today in your business was based on a set of assumptions, and some of them are strategic, some of them are financial, some of them are personal. But think about what they are and give yourself the permission to challenge every one of them. I look at across Connecticut, there's so many restaurants that have been impacted by COVID. And oddly, the ones that are doing the best are the ones with a super small footprint. There are restaurants that I'm sure you all can see that really never expected a lot of people to be eating in. And every single one that I talk to is doing better today than they were doing before COVID. And that's just you can imagine why that is. More people wanting to eat out, fewer restaurants open, takeout seems safe. They're managing the safety protocols appropriately, and their takeout business is off the charts. And I have several clients like that that are actually doing better than they were for the summer last year. The second piece of this, writing down how your business has evolved since its beginning. So everybody you probably did a SWOT analysis, you probably did some sort of business planning before you launched your business. There are a set of assumptions that were all part of that. And then we get to today, and now we're faced with a crisis. But here's a good moment and it would be a nice exercise to do and a worthwhile amount of time to spend on it, to think about what's evolved. Which of the original assumptions I had about my business turned out to be true, which of them didn't, which of them surprised me. That's always my favorite question to ask entrepreneurs, is what was the biggest surprise? Because people were at one point in time very methodical, created a business plan, did the analysis, and this is a nice time to revert back to that and say, okay, what's played out the way I expected and what hasn't? And let's be thoughtful about that. And then the third question here is really sort of designed to blend your business expectations with your personal. So, and it's an interesting question. Before the crisis, were you really happy with how things were going? Or at least, were you happier than your peers who have a boss? And the idea here is to say, let's use this downtime or this crisis to sort of sanity check what was working for you personally. And we'll come back to this a little bit later. But the articles, one of the articles I read about this suggested that if you can ask yourself this question and you really get a no for one of these things, then you may want to relook at sort of bigger picture, whether there's a misalignment between what you're hoping for in your business and what's the reality. So this is a nice little worksheet that I would encourage people to do if they're feeling a crisis, and I can send you probably a better version of it. But it goes along the lines of something that I do hope you're hearing from a variety of sources of how important it is to take care of yourself in the middle of this. And this is a tool that I think will help sort of calm the feeling of concern or anxiety or whatever you're feeling by getting it down on paper. Like, let's write everything out and we'll have a wholesome picture about all the different things that are impacting me at this given time, personally and with my business. So you can see, like, starting from the top left, your personal financial situation, and then moving clockwise, your spouse or partner situation, your children, like where is, you know, let's do a check on each element. Your business situation, there's an empty box. Down at the bottom, we can write about our wishes for the future. And then continuing on, you know, our health and stress levels to keep that in check. Feelings about your current and future work life, and then your own personal residential situation. Like, which of these are in the most acute place? If you take a couple minutes to fill this out, it'll give you an opportunity to hopefully prioritize some thinking in the directions which need it most. Now, this is when we get to thinking about your rescue team. And again, this is designed to be really your strategic rescue team. And next week, what we're going to end up talking about is sort of the more dry and tactical strategies for dealing with financial pressures or anxieties. But just like any other team that you've probably been on, you know, the idea behind this is to create a diverse group of people to help make sure that you're thinking as broadly as possible about your business and your strategy and your vision for what's on the other side of this. And I think that probably all of you who I know on this chat this morning would agree that the more diverse a team that you put together, the better ideas you're going to come out with. So this is a more formulaic version of that. And you have a table and chairs on the right side, just as a helpful visual that, you know, if you imagine yourself sitting with 9 different other viewpoints to help figure out what the right way through is. The chart on the left will help you seat people at that table to create some diversity in thinking, while you're also providing a very wholesome group of skill sets there to help you make a decision. So the first category is decision makers at your company. For small businesses, that's you, and you're sitting there. But to the extent that you have a board of advisors or team leaders at your organization that you think have a unique and helpful viewpoint, they would always be welcome brains to sit around the table. Your employees of various functions, you know, to the extent that you have a larger team, you would want representatives from the different functions that you do have. Adding customers to the list. Both some of, you know, you may think that your best current customer is a voice that you want to keep hearing. You might also think that your best potential customer may be a voice that will help you make the decisions that you need to make to create an idea of what your business will look like going forward. I think it says creditors or service providers, but this could be somebody with a financial bent that can help make sure that that perspective is part of the conversation. And the next is really the specialists. I think everybody starting a business probably at one point had an advisor, coach, a lawyer, an accountant. I think in many ways, having somebody from a tactical field like a lawyer or an accountant is also a great person to have on your rescue team. I think there are other externals, which is the category there that includes interest groups, people who are like-minded with your business. You know, one of my clients actually is has a driving school a little east of here in Connecticut. And it never occurred to me how a driving school would be impacted by COVID, or it didn't, you know, present itself as one of the businesses that that would be particularly negatively impacted. But obviously they were shut down from giving driving lessons. There was a huge backlog that came as a result of, because, you know, 16-year-olds, 17-year-olds still want their license. And then you had the issue of DMV opening up, which was a critical factor and a gating factor to them really being able to open up. So 12 driving schools from throughout Connecticut formed a little group together and lobbied for themselves with their legislators to make sure that their interests were considered as the DMV opening strategy was rolled out. You know, the final one here I think is also important, including, you know, family members, good friends, people from your network that you inherently trust. So if you're thinking about putting together a rescue team, these are categories, they're really just suggestions, and there's certainly no magic in there being 9 people that you can invite. But I think the goal is for your particular business to sort of go through this list as a checklist. Like, is this going to be important to me or not? And that's what this chart is designed to do. If you look at, you know, if you sort of take your specific instance and layer it upon this chart with a goal of getting a diverse group of people and expertise around the table, I think it can create a really a nice conversation where people are challenging in positive and have your best interest in mind. These are some local resources that I want to make sure everybody's aware of. I think most of you are. You know, we at the Small Business Development Center, we're here. We hired 5 new advisors to help people get through COVID. So we are hoping that you take advantage of that. SCORE, they also often write around HAYVN. They are a free resource. They do one-on-one counseling, and Women's Business Development Council is another. They do a lot of very good work, and they're very engaged with this particular crisis and making sure that all the knowledge we have gets out there. This is my contact information, but I can stop sharing so that I can get back to all of the faces on here, and would love to hear comments and feedback or thoughts that you're all having.
Christine, thank you so much for sharing the wonderful presentation. I really appreciate it. What I get from this presentation is that absolutely having the crisis team in place is very, very important and critical for everything which is running during this crisis. And especially that chart which you mentioned, I think that would be a great resource. If you can actually share that chart with us on email, we can actually work on that and maybe, you know, share that with for your guidance as well. I personally feel that every crisis raises an opportunity, and in fact, this is a great time when people have been at home and they are able to self-analyze as to what are the positives and the negatives which were going on in their lives, and they can self-evaluate, and even their businesses. So I think it's a great time for self-evaluation, which I've actually gone through. And I think my peers who are also entrepreneurs will also agree with me on that aspect.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you.
Are you on mute?
No. Okay. Thank you.
I can hear you now.
Okay, great. Thanks, Christine, for having the webinar today. where SCORE is located, please?
Yeah, so the best way to get involved with SCORE is to
Uh-huh.
look at their website, and you can,
Okay.
they have a lot of workshops, but if
Mhm.
you want to get matched with a one-on-one person who may
Mhm.
have been in your industry,
Mhm.
they do have like a web form that you can fill out to get paired with
Okay.
somebody. There
Okay.
is a woman who is working right at Felicia's site.
Oh.
And I don't actually know her hours, but she has had office hours in the past, and I'm sure we're just getting ourselves up and running with that again.
Okay, great. Thank you.
I'll put her information in the chat here, so you can reach
Sure.
out.
Yeah.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Christine. I was looking at your rescue team chart and realizing how it covers everything from business to family, and that's kind of how we have to always move forward. We can't just separate business from family or private anymore. You know, I think when businesses can start to think about that and their employees and how they're doing personally, that's how they can move forward. So,
Yeah.
so I'm doing that for myself, but I'm also thinking about the people I work with.
Yeah. How has your business been going, Kaitza? In the
Yeah,
middle.
no, it's in a demanding industry, so we offer e-learning services and consulting services. So, so we're in an area that's not been negatively affected. So,
I wondered if the opportunity, if you're one of the categories that the challenge now is to figure out how do you meet the demand, or
yeah, that's
keep
that's precisely what I'm dealing with. How to meet the demand on my time and how to offer the same, you know, level of services and really scale up. That's what we're doing. So that's why I'm glad I have Grace here, the intern, and you know, she's gonna work with us. What did you hear? I know you did a lot on SWOT analysis. What did you hear in this presentation?
I thought that it was important to have a diverse group of people on your crisis team. That way you can get a variety of ideas, and that way it can really help your business the best.
Yeah. And I think that's what we all need to do. So, and having a place like HAYVN where you can get different kinds of resources is amazing. So.
Yes. Tina, it's nice to see you here too. I think you're on mute though.
There we go, right?
Yes.
Oh,
Yeah, I loved your slides. I took pictures of most of them. You did such an amazing job with them. A lot came up for me, you know, because with COVID, my business was one that didn't slow down. And unfortunately, I was too afraid to have anyone else like in the commercial kitchen, touching anything, doing anything. And I had to make a year's worth of syrup in 3 weeks myself.
You do that.
I ended up with a frozen shoulder, so I'm dealing with that now. But so I love how you kind of have us pausing now, because now is pause time to think how. I love this. If I'm starting my business from scratch, what business would I build and how would I build it? Because I think that what COVID showed us is that we do need to rethink our strategies and how we do things, and how we can get things to people and still be a commodity and help people. How do we help people during this time? So I love all that you said, and I'm going to take some time to look at all them. And if you have an opportunity or a way to send us those slides, that would be amazing.
I will send you the slides. I will send you the worksheets and the article, because it's absolutely worth a read.
Thank you.
okay. Well, I wanted to thank everybody for joining. Christine can stay on just to chat more, or I'm happy to chat more too. It's nice to see everybody. And we are open here. I'm sitting at the HAYVN area, and it's nice and quiet and safe. So if you want to come by, and I still have your elderberry in the fridge. So I was using it during COVID. It was great. So thank you. And it was, please, you know, continue to join our HAYVN half times and consider being part of our group. We have great resources. Christine has her office, and Melissa's here too, which I posted in chat. So thanks all for joining.
Sure.
I was just there yesterday, and I'll be there a little later this afternoon.
Oh,
Felicia.
good, I'm here. Good.
Wonderful.
We can take a meditation. We've converted the massage room into a little meditation area downstairs too.
It's
So-
great.
That's nice.
Mhm.
Well, thank you
Nice
all.
meeting everybody. I need to jump
Thank
off.
you.
All
Thank
right.
you so much, Christine.